Welcome to the Impact of AI Explored podcast, hosted by James O'Regan and Gerjon Kunst. Created by and for IT professionals, we focus on how AI reshapes our daily work. With AI insights growing every day, we cut through the noise to deliver what matters most. Join us as we explore the latest breakthroughs, share best practices, and empower you to make the most of AI in your career.
Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of the Impact of AI Explored, where we look at AI and how it affects us in our daily lives. Today we have a very special guest and a very cool guest, Jeroen. Jeroen, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Jeroen van Steijn. I'm 26 years old. My birthday was last weekend.
Woo! Congrats!
Happy birthday! Thank you. I'm a team lead at Delta N. In the AI space, data and AI. So basically, for the past 8 years, I've done everything from software development until like the last 2 or 3 years, where I focused more on the AI stuff when that became bigger and bigger. Before that, I studied at TU Delft, computer science with specializations in algorithmics and AI. So already really interested in the topic, but that at the time was mostly machine learning kind of stuff. And now I have to say like maybe 80% of what I do is generative AI, together with a team of 5 people. Yeah.
Cool. Sounds like a hobby more than a job, but that's because you're talking to 2 guys who love to do it. So the thing we're going to do this podcast episode is talk about some practical implications of AI from practical use cases. And Jeroen and I met at a user group, the Power Platform user group in the Netherlands. Yep. We had a chat over a beer after the presentations, and Jeroen said, I told I was doing a podcast show with James. Jeroen said, "Ooh, I'd like to be on that. I think I have something cool stuff to tell." So here we are. So the idea is to do some practical use cases, and you have some really cool things that you are doing in the AI space. So the idea is to take our listeners on a journey about some of the cool things that you guys are doing to let AI help companies be more productive, more efficient, and help people, because that's one of the things AI does. Jeroen, so we have a few use cases that you can talk about, and the first case is something that speaks to the imagination. It has to do with windmills and the North Sea.
Yeah,
that's right. Can you enlighten us?
Yeah, so actually the story starts maybe almost 3 years ago, where we were at a startup hub with my company that I had before this. And at that hub in The Hague, we met a new startup in Delft, Spectax. And they were already planning to do everything to do with offshore drones for windmill inspection. That sounds vague, but to clarify, what they do is they have a lot of engineers on the drone side. They can use those drones to do inspection. That's already happening a lot on land, but they want to make it even more difficult and do it at the North Sea. And on the North Sea, what they do is they go there, fly with a single drone up to the windmill, or maybe even 2, and they inspect the outside and inside of the windmills. So they were doing that project already, or they actually were doing some research into that to see if they can make that work together with DNO. So that project was sort of already happening. We couldn't really help them at the time, but we stayed in touch. And they mentioned that, they wanted to do more of these kind of applications in the offshore space for windmills. Because, a lot are being installed, a lot are being operated, they have to be maintained. And the status quo is just that's a lot of people work, and it's very dangerous and very expensive. Because you can imagine, like a big ship goes there, you have waves, you have a lot of height. So it's a really, like people think the North Sea is very calm, but it's not. The waves can be 10, 15, 20 meters high. That's basically what they told me. We stayed in touch for 1.5, 2 years went by. In the meantime, some subsidies came up that actually wanted to reduce the cost of operating these windmill farms. So they came to us when they found this new subsidy that was mostly about lowering the operational cost. And a new founder joined them as well, who was mostly into like this maintenance of these windmills. And he knew a lot about waves. So his vision was to do better wave forecasting, because the status quo of wave forecasting is you have like a daily, like the weather forecast that you normally have, but that's very rough. So large areas and only hour by hour. And you have a radar on the ship, and that can see for like 2 minutes ahead. But what happens a lot, actually 15% of the time, is the ship has to stay still or cancel its whole operation because of the waves. So it would be really, really valuable if you can predict these waves ahead of time, because then you can make other decisions. You can decide, oh no, we go to a different windmill to operate that, or we do a different operations. So his idea was, okay, I want this better forecast, and I'm now joining this company who's already doing offshore drones. Can we use the drones to get a better wave forecast? So what they came up with was to do a drone swarm. And a swarm means that you have like a group of drones that operate together to gather information, for example, in this case. So these drones will be around the ship. Yeah, James?
No, I was going to say I've seen like the drone swarms, but doing like fireworks or not, light displays, and pretty impressive and a bit scary at the same time as well. Because there is so many of them when you see them and the things they can do. But yeah, I'm really liking the swarm thing is very cool.
Yeah, and I have to say it's not my expertise at all. So I'm also impressed that you can do that, Yeah. Because they need to coordinate, and they, like, for example, if something is about to collide with something, the drone itself needs to make a new plan, and you cannot do like they do it with hundreds. So how do you then make sure that they don't collide with each other? Yeah, that's very, very impressive that they can do that. So we have the same thing with these 8 drones, for example. They need to have sensors to measure the waves. They have a big battery to be able to go. We're planning or hoping for feasibility of around 20 kilometers around the ship. So that's quite far. But you need that in order to get like a 30-minute wave forecast, because the waves travel pretty fast as well. So that's basically the idea of the project. Is called Aquafind. And Spectex is a startup in Delft that's really leading it. But we do it together with a lot of research organizations. And each one has their specialization. So Spectex is doing the hardware side, the drone side, and the swarming coordination side. But we also have, for example, Deltares, who are really specialized in water and wave prediction. So they have models of the North Sea already. But the problem with these models is that they are not that fast. So they can model the North Sea. That's really cool. That's better than actually having to go there each time and gather a big data set, because that's very expensive. So we use their models, but the models take days, cost a lot of compute. And in practice, we need the drone to gather data and then translate that to a new prediction of the wave. And we'll need a machine learning model for that. That's quite a lot faster than their model can be. So that's our expertise, is really this machine learning part, really only software side. So nothing with actually going offshore, although I'm hoping that someday I'll actually go there, see the drones in action, and see what they predict. Then we also have TNO, who is doing mostly research on the decision side. So let's say you have this data. How do you then make better decisions? That's also something you need, like the offshore marine expertise for, to know, like these ships. How can they decide based on when the waves are coming? Where should they go elsewhere? What is their plan? That's also like the whole planning side. They already have this kind of tool, but they need to integrate this data into it. And lastly, we also have TU Delft. And TU Delft is mainly researching the swarming together with Spectex, but they are really researching, like, you have the local goal of the drone, which is I want to not collide with things, and I want to be stable, and I want to be able to land. And you have the global goal of covering the whole area, and they need to sort of coordinate with each other for that. So that's what TU Delft is studying.
Wow. So, and then your goal is, or your task in this whole project is, let us build the LLM that gets all that information and can predict based on all that's coming in from the drones and all the public information, what should we do for the next 30 minutes?
Yeah, it's mostly not even what should we do, but it's mostly predicting a wave profile. So really like how high will the wave be, in what direction will it be, what will it hit, that kind of thing. And we want to forecast that for 30 minutes. And then TNO will, together with us, look into how can you then make better decisions.
Wow, it sounds like a complex thing with all these different parties looking at different part of the of the elephant.
Yeah, it's huge because you need to coordinate together, but there's also a lot of dependencies on each other, right? So we already wanted to start, but there's no data yet. For example, what sensor are we going to use is really important because some are lighter, some are heavier. Some can work better at sea with refraction of light, and if it's muddy waters, it might be different. So Deltares actually has an installation physically in Delft of wave simulations, and we're gonna soon, in a few months, actually fly a drone over there with different sensors to test them in similar conditions to the sea. So yeah, maybe the sensor changes, and then our whole assumption of how the model should work might have to change as well.
So this is the defining thing of crap in is crap out.
Yeah, basically on a larger scale, it's the same thing.
Yeah, because if the sensor is giving bad data, then the boat is getting the wrong information, and then you could have a colossal issue.
For sure, yeah. That I think there's some room for errors. It's okay if you predict a 10-meter wave and it's 9.5, but
yeah, of course.
Do you have any estimate for how much time you have saved by using AI in this process? Like, have you cut the time by 50% or any kind of estimate on the time savings due to the fact that you're utilizing AI?
Mm-hmm. So it would really not be feasible to do this without AI, because then you get this data, the sensor data, but how do you know what it means for the ship location? You could do it with like classical mathematics, but the problem there is that it takes too long. So you get the same information, but it takes days. So you cannot really make a decision based on that. Yeah. So it's mostly that it saves. And then the outcome of the whole project, that's what I said, is like 15% of their time they're stuck doing nothing. And if you imagine that a single ship, it costs like between 100 and 200,000 euros a day to operate. So the cost of standing still is between 15K, 20K, 30K a day.
Yeah, so the business case is really easy.
Yeah, if you can make it work. Yeah,
and how are you looking at the, because you're now, you said you're looking at the sensor, so you need to know what data, then you can do the model stuff. When is this going to be getting used then? And do you have any timeline on when we're going to see this on the 8 o'clock news?
Good question. So on the 8 o'clock news, I hadn't thought about that yet, but that would be really lovely. I think the timeline is we actually started with implementing in February this year. So we're now in about 4 or 5 months. The planning is that in 1.5 years, we've actually done the first operational test. And then really production use, it's between 2 and 2.5 years from now.
And aren't you scared that in the meantime, AI is going to go so much faster that whatever you build, you're going to be lagging behind somewhere if you make a wrong decision, or you build something and then a few months later there's something that's even better than, and that's already off the shelf available?
I think that's really the thing is there's a research side and there's an engineering side of actually implementing something in the real world. And we're stuck with a lot of challenges that are sort of very practical, right? So if you can make that work end to end, then if there's better models coming out, just swapping them out and having better performance is of course great. But even if the model would be perfect, let's say, we can just throw in garbage and it gets a good result. There's still a lot of work to do to make this work end to end. So having set up like a way to actually test and evaluate the model is actually more work than having a better model, let's say. So it would only improve performance, but it's not that you don't have to do any work then to implement things. I think that's also a parallel with other AI projects, right? If you would just wait for the perfect model, but you have garbage data, then in 2 years still, if the data doesn't make any sense, AI cannot make anything of it either.
No, and I like the idea of let's just start and see what the future brings, because waiting for the future to happen is always a bad idea. Let's just start and see what happens.
Yeah, you have to make things like the challenges of climate change are there, and the cost of operating these windmill farms is really, really high, a lot higher than, for example, sun energy, which is very cheap.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense to try to make it cheaper.
Yeah, and I can imagine far more complex being at sea than on land.
Yeah, I really believe like that's making it 10 times more difficult.
Yeah. But we don't have to look at it, so that helps. It's
also more
offshore
impressive,
somewhere.
right?
Yeah. And it's a good birthday story when you're on a birthday somewhere. So what do you do for a living? Well, I make windmills more cost effective.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's a really cool use. James, do you have any additional thoughts on this?
No, I just find it a fascinating use case that, and given what Jeroen has said about all the moving parts and the amount of data and that kind of thing, like this is a perfect use case for AI, because it just, as he said, it wouldn't be feasible without it. So it's a really niche one. It's not one that most people are going to come up with, but if you think about the cost savings, given that boat costs like 200 grand a day to just when it's just sitting there, like, you know, it makes sense. And if you think about this, there's wind farms in the sea all around the world. This just, you know, there is a market for a solution like this, and so yeah, it's a very exciting use case.
Yeah, and you can think of parallels in other use cases in the marina, in the aquatic scene, where this also might help.
For sure, yeah. So we got a subsidy, like I mentioned. So RVO is also, that's the Dutch agency to grant subsidies. They are regularly there at meetings or at the kickoffs, and they also emphasize that they like the project also because it has similar applications. Like, for example, other places they want to investigate like the coastal line and the quality of water there, or the quality of the coastal line, like the structure of it. So this whole idea of having multiple drones inspect something or coordinate together in windy conditions, that's really something they want to do more of in the future.
In my head, there's some dystopian future where swarms of drones are inspecting everything, from houses to flats to roads, and you just see sitting there and drones everywhere.
It's happening a lot already, actually, in industrial complexes. So, for example, like on land, just in Rotterdam, for example, in the harbor, if you have a big tank with something in it, like you don't want people to just walk by and look at the walls, look at the roofs. That's already being done by drones a lot as well.
Yeah, you could definitely see use case in an oil refinery or something like that, given the miles and miles of piping they have, and if one of them has a slight crack in it, the implications are really critical. So yeah, no, definitely it's a use case that has lots of industries could utilize.
Yeah, but
cool.
like you said, it's a bit of a niche. So I noticed that as well.
But like there's so many like massive engineering type environments. Like I worked for an engineering software firm, and like I saw use cases I'd never seen before in my entire life. It was just like, so it just because no one's heard of them or they're different doesn't mean they're not valid, and they are valid. And there's a lot of industries that spend a lot of money. So this is a way of saving money when it's all kind of completed, that they will absolutely jump on it. So I'd say it's something to keep an eye on.
Exactly.
Yeah, and niche is always expensive.
Yep.
Yeah, luckily we also have like an advisory board of a few companies that are looking to test it, because testing is also very expensive. If you've heard what this boat costs, then the the whole subsidy would be gone in 10 days. No, not a little bit more, but in a month or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you need some donations to make it feasible in the long run and to get everything
for them
fixed.
it's also a little bit of an investment, but they're already operating the boat, so we can just join in on a few test days.
Now, if you need extra crew on the boat, just give us a ring, right, James? No worries.
15 to 20 foot waves. Nope.
Meters, not foot. Wait, meters. So that it's even more feet.
Oh,
Don't pin me down on that. I think it might be 10. I'm not entirely sure.
No, yeah. Either way, I've been on ferries on the Irish Sea, and that was enough for me. So,
but
when
I heard you also
the
need to
boat's
be
doing this and then coming back down, that's when I'm like kind of I'm done.
I think you need to be certified as well to be on there. You need to
I'm sure. I'm sure. Yeah, exactly.
I can imagine.
Yeah. No, I can imagine the North Sea can get extremely rough at certain times of the year. Probably unexpected times, like, I'll be fine in summertime. No, it won't.
No, it's really bigger than you expect, yeah.
Yeah, it's bigger and it's far rougher.
Cool.
I have to say that is a really cool use case, though. I'm quite impressed. So yeah.
Yeah. So and that gives us a nice pivot to something more closer to home. So we start with the big one that everyone's thinking, interesting. You also did some really cool thing for a healthcare department, which is a little bit more close to home for many of our listeners, viewers, and other interested people. Can you tell us a little bit more about that case?
For sure, it's more close to home. I actually think I heard that like 1 in 6 people in the Netherlands work in healthcare, something like that. And that in order to sustain the current age movement towards older people being more there, it should be like 1 in 4 people in 2030 or something in order to sustain that. So yeah, there's really a big problem in healthcare with finding enough people, because at some point we just run out and everyone should be in healthcare. So they noticed that already a lot. So we had a client, I can name them, it's Pameyer, and they are in the Rotterdam area, but almost all over the Netherlands, mostly Randstad. And we've been working for many years together, but they didn't do anything with AI yet, just like modern work implementations, Power Apps, that kind of stuff. And then I think it was in August or September last year, I spoke with the IT manager there about like, hey, AI in healthcare is really, like, healthcare is one of the main beneficiaries of like the AI growth, because there's so much that they do with just like text processing, writing things down, that kind of thing. So he already noticed that, and he came to us like, hey, what do you have experience in this? What do you think would be helpful for us? And so, the first thing we did was just discovery of like different processes that we could potentially look at with AI. So I just went there for a day and spoke to, I think, 4 or 5 different people for an hour, which I really loved because I don't know anything about it, which is great. You just go there and sit for an hour. What do you do? And people sometimes are really surprised that they don't actually know what they do the whole day. They don't get asked this a lot to someone that doesn't know anything. So sometimes they forget stuff, or they actually don't know where to start, what is my job actually? And the most I talked with is the people who have the job of arrangeur. It's a Dutch word, but it means like arranger. It's a word that Pameyer came up with. They have a lot of nice language, but it basically means coordinator of healthcare. Mm-hmm. And their job is to coordinate the healthcare of new clients and of existing clients. It means administration, but it also means that they get the right healthcare and not something that doesn't fit with them. So they check in with the clients twice a year. They speak to the coach or the healthcare provider that's actually doing the day-to-day stuff twice a year. And they also maintain like the waiting list and that kind of stuff. And Pameyer is about 80 of these arrangeurs. And they are looking more for 100 because they all have like 100 clients or something like that, and it was just not working out. Everyone had like a 20% higher workload than they could actually manage. So that was also why it made sense to start there. They needed some time saving because they just have a lot of shortage on that job. So after these interviews, I discovered like, okay, this is how the process works. And they had a very nice manual about how they processed new client information coming in. There's a few different types of clients, like youth or adult, and if it's in-house or if these people still live on their own or not, because you can actually live at a Paameijer house. But yeah, there was like 3 or 4 manuals, and the manual was just about like, hey, with all of the client information coming in, everything from the municipality, everything from previous healthcare providers. If it's youth, then probably also something from the school, diagnoses. This is what you have to look at, like 7 or 8 topics. And for each topic, it's specified like, hey, there's a paragraph like, hey, look at this, look at this, look at this. So yeah, that manual was really our input for like a prompt. That's the first thing I thought, like, hey, we throw this into AI. We add all of the client information. This should be able to summarize it. And that's actually exactly what they were already doing by hand. Basically summarizing, gathering all of the information and getting to a concise summary of this is the point of the client in order to hand that over to the healthcare provider in the end. So we started building this, I think, in October. And by January, no, I think maybe November even. And by January, we already implemented it for 3 different arrangeurs to start with. So that was like 2 months.
So just a question. I presume, given the nature of the data, you built a private AI model, or yeah.
The first thing that comes to mind, of course, if you're in healthcare, is like, hey, this is pretty sensitive stuff. Yeah. So how are we going to do this securely? Now it was lucky that Paameijer is actually already quite far with that kind of stuff. So their Azure provider already had like landing zones and everything in place, privileged identity management, that kind of stuff. So all we needed to add was the AI stuff. But if you do that in that environment, then it's actually quite easy to do that. So that's more like the security side of it. But you also have to look at the other risks. So for example, misuse or the risk that someone, misuse just means like risk that someone uploads a wrong document or misses a document. So what happens then? So we also looked into that. But to be honest, like in the beginning, you can, if you have really good instruction for the pilot, you can have these people basically double check their work. So they first do it themselves and then they do the AI one and they make a comparison. So then the risk stuff you can mitigate basically in a small group and scale up from there. That's also what we found worked the best. We try to keep the pace relatively high because otherwise, you're a year or more ahead and you're still in this pilot phase. That's not what you want.
Yeah, pilot indefinitely. So the idea was we got a bunch of documents from a client or from someone who's in our care. We put it in an AI and it gives us the possible next steps to do or the plans to follow or to...
Yeah, not necessarily next steps, because then you're more diagnosing or actually like deciding the medical care. So maybe it's good. The care is like, for example, you get someone that helps you run your life basically, and every aspect that if you have autism or ADHD or something like severe that's hindering your day-to-day life, that's what they help you with.
Okay, so
it's more either permanent or long-term thing that you live with them or you get coached towards being more able to live on your own. So that's the kind of healthcare that they provide. But the summary was really, it's what happened previously, what's happening now, which healthcare did you receive previously? Are there any risks that other healthcare providers mentioned? And what is the diagnosis? Okay, that's the kind of topic that you look for. And each one has like an instruction. So let's say diagnosis. There's a DSM manual that says exactly what code the diagnosis is. We want to have it also something practical. You have to sum it up as like a list, so not like a story. That kind of instruction is there per paragraph.
So, and if you looked at the pilot group, you said the first 3 did it by hand and then used AI. How did it compare?
So it started out with mixed feelings. The first results, we tried to do it in school grades. The pilot group gave it either a 5 or a 6, depending on who you asked. We mixed the pilot group together with someone that's really enthusiastic about AI, sees opportunity everywhere, was thinking along with us, and someone that was maybe neutral, and someone that maybe was very skeptical, like, no, it's making assumptions. We should really be more careful here. So that was a good mix, but it was still like the most positive was a 6 and the most negative was a 5. So it was doing something. It was a good direction, but also definitely not perfect. So then we started iterating on it together with them. And that was very important because later on we noticed that it helped them to understand what prompt decisions we made, where the trade-offs were. So they could later explain others like, hey, during the development, we actually found that this prompt works better than this prompt because, if you make it too specific or too vague, this other thing will not work. So they really became like a key user in that sense. So that was really interesting. But also they saw really fast improvement towards like a grade of a 7 or an 8. So that was also very important because if it stuck at a 5, then probably we wouldn't have continued.
No, that's not good enough. And then the pilot succeeded, and then of course you get the problem of adoption because you have about 80 of those people in that role.
Yep.
How did you get everyone up to speed and everyone accepting and willing to use the AI in that capacity?
So there was a few key points there. So first, these 3 pilot users scaled up by all inviting like 10 people. So we scaled up to 30 around. So they instructed them and they were also the first person to ask questions to. There is a few of the 80 people that have more of a niche. So for example, some are more legal focused because sometimes the government says or a judge says you have to have this care. So that's also a different application. We kept that out for a little bit, tried to generalize more to a group that also fits what we made. But how do you get those 30 people? So first, make the application as easy as possible, right? So it has to be simple. There was an instruction manual, a few tips here or there, explaining how they are still, of course, responsible for the outcome. But what's really important is that we just kept it as simple as possible. So you drop the files in, you click generate, you have to select the template in order to know like what do we focus on for this person. But that's it. So the interface looked very clear, very easy. You get logged in with your Enter ID on the background. That's very easy as well. So that was really important. We also added a feedback option. So if anyone didn't like anything about it, we got it back right away. We summarized the feedback with AI so that we could easily process it and then bring a next version. But I have to say that it really helped that we kept it that simple because everything that you add for steps, people just, especially there where some people were still typing with 2 fingers, right? They, really appreciated that. Something else that was interesting during this phase is that a lot of people reported that they were starting to do this process differently. Because at first they were sometimes skipping this process completely when time ran out. Or they said, you can do it before you talk to the person, you can do it after you talk to the person and then correct your summary. Whereas before they would only do it once because it took so much time. Now they just do it every time there's new information, they can update it easily. So that's also something that improved the quality somehow of their process, which we didn't intend, but it was really useful.
Yeah, because it's a big time save. Because you said a little bit about the time they save, but it's really good. They save a lot of time doing this. Any estimates that you have on those?
It depends a bit on the person. And like I said, if they didn't do it before, then we're not saving them time. But if like in the normal case, it takes between like half an hour to an hour. Or if it's a really big one, then it can be up to 4 hours. And now it's just like 15 minutes of checking the sources that are mentioned by AI, looking for highlights when you scroll through the document. And it's also important to say that if you look at the risk of people assuming things that are wrong, that we found that that's already what was happening is before they went to the client, they were skeptical of the documents because the municipality can say A, but reality can be B. So even if AI did everything perfect, the summary is not to be trusted. You verify everything with the client. That's what the talking to the client is for. So even if something wrong is in there, they would verify everything.
Yeah, and that helps because this one is also crap in is crap out. It's the same thing. If
exactly, and it's
if
not only like AI did it wrong. I always say like I can spend 10 hours making the summary with the exact prompt that you gave, and I couldn't do it any better.
No,
so
because
then
you have the same
is
input,
it
same
AI is
information.
wrong? Are we waiting for a better model? Like maybe I'm not intelligent, but it's not only about that. You need the context.
Yeah, and that's a really cool takeaway from this one. So don't the data you get from different parties can also be wrong. So don't trust the data blindly. So don't trust AI blindly, but also don't trust the incoming data blindly.
Exactly.
Wow, but it saves them a lot of time using this. And I can imagine something like a Power App where they just put it in and click continue, and then it runs, and then it gives them the input.
Mm-hmm.
And you're continuously iterating on that now?
Yeah, so we extended it also to this legal case, and we improved on a few things based on the feedback. And we're also extending now to different use cases. So I've now recently talked to the Von coach, or the living coach, I guess, that's actually receiving this summary and then starting the healthcare. And they do a lot of talk about the goals that someone has, how they are going to achieve being on their own. So that they work towards setting goals, and they have to report on that for the subsidy that they get from the municipality, but also in order to achieve the goals of someone, it's good to have that as a backup. But what was really funny is they didn't know yet about this tool. So we showed this to them, and they were like, hey, we could also make it ourselves. But even better, like, I didn't notice anything about the summaries that I get. Are they really different? And they looked up the recent summary, and they were like, hey, this is way better because normally I don't get them, or they don't include this or that. And now it's actually concise and to the format that we want and in the language that we want. So they were really surprised that this was a thing that was happening. Yeah.
A real cool quality improvement.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So that was really funny to hear.
Yeah, I was going to say, one of the things for me that your story highlighted was that, this is not AI acting on its own. This is the human interaction is required because you had to hone the data to be the way people wanted to present it. So I think it's a good use case for where we're kind of coexisting with AI. So, and that's kind of the one of the things we've always said is like that's the way you need to interact. It's not just, you're not just speaking into an echo chamber. It's a two-way communication process essentially. So yeah, no, that's really interesting. One question I had was around, was there any people who kind of felt threatened by it, that they could potentially lose their job, and did you have to like reassure people, or was that left to someone else?
We did be careful for that, so we wanted to see if that came up. But I have to say that what was easy about this in this case is that no one enjoyed making these things. So everyone was just really happy that they don't have to do it themselves. So
essentially
anymore.
What you have is the perfect use case for AI, because you're making something easier that everyone hated doing, which would be expenses for me. Like if you can build me an AI process that does my expenses for me, I'd be forever grateful, because even though it's my money and I want it back, I procrastinate so much over doing it, and I lose time, and it's just,
Same.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to pull all those receipts out and from OneDrive and check them and enter them. It's like, So yeah, I think you've come across one of the most perfect use cases where no one's threatened because it's something they don't want to do, and that's the whole point of what we should be utilizing AI for. It's getting rid of the stuff we don't want done. So, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think that's with every use case the case. Like maybe for software engineers using GitHub Copilot can be a little bit more threatening sometimes. Even I have other opinions about that. But definitely for this use case, it was also a bit on purpose at the beginning. So this interviewing process at the beginning was already where I started together with them selecting like, hey, how do we get this sort of AI program accelerated? Get this feeling in the company like, hey, this can make a real impact. Because now we're doing stuff that's a little bit more difficult. We want to summarize conversations that people are having. So they have to record them, which they didn't do. And that can help them a lot as well. But it requires more positivity towards AI and being open to changing your process.
But I think you talked about one of the key things with an AI strategy is acceptance with the workforce you're trying to implement it for. And you started with that. And then you've already built up that trust with them. So then it's easier to kind of progress further along. So it's something that everyone should bear in mind is like you do need user acceptance in implementing AI and take away that fear factor that everyone's going to lose their jobs. You mentioned about vibe coding. We did a presentation at Experts Live. I vibe coded an app at the airport while I was waiting for my plane to board. It took me 3 minutes. I have no coding experience whatsoever.
Cool.
I have no, and I suppose that's a different use case. That's one where yes, people start to get potentially looked at. But I think for me, what I kind of took away from that whole vibe coding thing is it's great for prototyping and that kind of thing. But would I actually build something production ready utilizing it? Probably not.
Oh, I agree.
No.
Definitely at the moment. No.
Yeah. Yes. That's the thing. At the moment.
Yeah.
Tomorrow could be a very different thing as we.
Exactly, and it depends on what production means. Because I work with startups a lot. And there people are already using no-code tools and that kind of stuff. That's never good if you have 1,000+ users and you're making a profit. But if you don't and you wanna validate an idea, it can be already better than no coding, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the kind of thing. That was my key takeaway from this whole vibe coding thing is if you're doing prototyping or if you're at a startup, you can get to where you actually have something where you don't. It's not just vaporware you're dealing with. You can actually have something tangible to show people in a relatively short space of time. Like 3 minutes.
Yeah, it's amazing, right?
Yeah, it is. But it is. But as I said, someone shouldn't just take what they've done in 3 minutes and go, okay, we'll just now deploy that to 100,000 users and everything crashes to the ground, because that's just not something you should be doing.
Yeah, how can you even validate in 3 minutes if something's correct, right?
Well, exactly. Yeah. No. The whole testing and validation. But I suppose again, there's kind of key use cases for this whole thing. You can test and validate some of the code via AI if you've got like to look for a particular entry or something in the code or something like that. So yeah, there is use cases, but don't be building production code with.
Don't fire your software developers, please.
No, do not fire. There's no. Yeah, we're not at that stage yet. Nowhere near it. So
nowhere near it.
Definitely not. But it is cool that they can do more in less time. I also think that I had an interesting discussion more about the long-term side of it. Like someone said, but the vibe-coded code is less maintainable, right? It's one of the reasons. But I said, but what if AI can also maintain it through just rewriting the code? So do we need it to be maintainable by humans in the future? Or is it okay if the code quality is less? If you have a good data model, you just build a whole new feature for it instead of having to have a maintainable feature. Like I can imagine in the future
away and
something
replace.
like that.
Yeah.
So the definition of maintainable is more, can AI maintain it in the future maybe? But that is like a few years away, I guess.
Yeah, I see another topic coming up for a podcast in the future, James.
yeah, definitely. This is the thing, isn't it? This is the thing. As things develop, we'll have more topics. It's and I never thought I'd be speaking on a podcast about windmills and boats. So
me neither. To
There's
be
a
honest.
first for everything,
and in the context of AI as well. So.
Yeah, so going to the third use case, Jeroen, because that's also something that we in the Netherlands really enjoy, and that's something that it's worldwide usable. Can you take us on a journey on that one? Because that's a
Yeah.
really fun use case.
Yeah, this is really where you start to notice that we don't have a specific target audience or target customer. Because if you're doing both drones and healthcare, and now I'm coming with the third use case, that's totally different again. No, but it's actually the one that we're working on right now, even today. It's for a customer for a long time. It's called Draw Names, or in Dutch it's Lootjestrekken. And Draw Names is an app that around 30 million people use a year. Almost all of them during December, where they draw names for either Christmas, or in the Netherlands we have Sinterklaas, but for all of the December festivities, you draw names, you give each other gifts. That's basically what the app is for. So they've been a long time customer, but
we call it Chris Kindle. It's like where you have only one family member you're buying for instead of buying for everyone, and you draw names, and then you have to get gifts, and you've got a limit and all that. Yeah.
In America, I think it's called Secret Santa, right, or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's different everywhere, but they have a lot of different regions, so that also makes it fun. Like it's also in Brazil and in the Middle East. But they started out in Delft as well, actually, as a startup in Delft 15 years ago, and it was only the Netherlands. But the reason they came up, actually, we also started with that last year. And there you notice maybe also the impact of AI shifting. Last year, what we did for them was help them out with their customer service, which I think everyone has heard by now. Like, hey, if you get a lot of emails and they are quite similar, AI can make a more personal response to your email. One of the questions that they get every year is, hey, can I also draw names with an uneven amount of people in my group? Now, you maybe have to think about it for a second, but you definitely can. You can just make a circle and everyone gets a different name, but they get that like 10 times a year or something. But also like simpler questions, like how do I add someone, or that kind of thing. But because they have this really peak moments in December, they need to hire like temporary staff every year to answer these tens of thousands of questions by these millions of customers. And in order to help reduce that a little bit, we implemented an AI that just went through all of the old data that they had, so all of the answers that they gave, their FAQ, that kind of data, and responded in the language of the email that they received. And it didn't really reply to the email, but we just put it in front of the email button. So you first enter your question, you get an answer immediately. If it's not, there's like one button to make it an email instead. And that reduced the amount of email by 30%. So that helped already, like with just a quick use case, like 2 or 3 months that we implemented. So that was good last year, but at the same time, not that exciting to me. It's just like a reduction of customer service, but it's not really like the core business or something that's really adding insane amount of value. So what we already thought was, hey, the main thing that Draw Names is about is getting good gifts. Why? Because that's our whole business model is you make a list of gifts, you get gift ideas that they recommend, and you want a personable, like surprising gift idea so that you can actually put it on your list and get that for Christmas from your friends or family. And the way that they do that currently is you have a few filters. So you put in your age, your gender, and you probably, we all three would get like beer recommended for the top 5 items.
Yes.
Beer and socks.
Exactly. So, which it's not that bad. Like, it's there for a reason. A lot of people actually think that's a good idea. But it would also help to mix in there, like, hey, Jeroen likes bouldering. I don't know if you know what bouldering is. Should I explain that?
Rock climbing?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, hey, if they know that, and last year I got like bouldering shoes, then this year maybe the magnesium powder that you use for it would be a good gift idea, right? And they didn't use any of that data right now. But it would be really cool to do that. Mm-hmm. So what we're implementing right now is exactly that. So we're now in the testing phase of, and that's quite difficult, but we're getting a lot of gift recommendations right now. What do we think about it? That's really the main challenge at the moment.
Yeah, so that's taking a lot of data. So someone that gets an account, he has to fill in some details about himself. For example, recently bought a house, or I like playing soccer, or whatever,
Yeah.
and then the AI will generate gifts based on that. Gift ideas based on
Yeah, it's
that.
funny that you mentioned recently buying a house, because my colleague that's building it, Koen, he bought a house yesterday. He got the key. Like 200 meters from the office of Lootjestrekken. We had a sprint review, and after we went looking at the house. and that's exactly what he put in his list. Like you can add your hobbies, interests, or anything else about me. So he put that in, and gaming, but he got like IoT stuff recommended. So smart speakers, but also a smart thermostat would be really nice if you're renovating a new house.
I presume the aim for this will eventually be that an AI agent can go and purchase that gift. You make the recommendation, it goes off, and it gets access to a retailer, and purchase it for you.
Yeah, I think the experience of actually buying it, I don't know much about that. Like the retailers are different in every region.
Sure. Yeah, no, that is the
redirected.
problem. That is, yeah, as you said, the problem. Yeah, but it just feels like that would be the next stage of it. Is that you automate the whole process, and it's done via an agent. But even where it's making recommendations, it's a really fun use case.
Yeah, and AI can be very creative. I can imagine that it will think of stuff that we didn't even think about.
Yeah, like I said, we're evaluating right now, and it's really difficult to do that, because some ideas, if you make it more creative, what you can just do, there's a temperature setting, and more creative just means like more out of the box, more different every time. If you set it to almost 0, then it's almost always the same. But if you make it more creative, then it's making associations. You have to guess which association it is. And it could be a good association for someone else, but I just personally don't like it. The good thing is that Lootjestrekken, or Drawn Names, has a lot of experience running A/B tests. That's really the main thing. How they grew is just A/B testing every minor detail of their app. So we're also able to test that once it's actually live, and we can first see if it's not that terrible that we don't want to do it this year. But if it's okay, then we can also test like different creativity settings, for example. But one thing it also came up with the new house was a way to hang the TV on the wall, and it was exactly what he had looked at the day before, because that's the kind of thing. And that's an association that I wouldn't come up with, but if you see it, you're like, yeah, that's nice. But at the same time, maybe for me, it's not applicable,
Yeah. The more creative you get, the more you can hit and miss.
Yeah, it's a business decision as well for them. And it can also be something you do in the user experience. You can do a lot with this. You could say like, hey, how creative do you want AI to be? Or maybe first you don't make it creative, but if it's not working, you make it more creative. Or we were also thinking like you can make it more of an interaction. People are putting it on for themselves, but also for other people. A lot of people don't put anything on their list, and you still know stuff about it. Maybe I have my dad, and he didn't fill in the list. But still, I can put in stuff, and I can talk to like, no, I don't think that's a good idea. He already has that, but maybe something with gardening. Like that kind of thing can also be nice. And currently, we're only looking at like your list, and you're making your list for yourself.
Yeah, but I can imagine the iterations that you can do. Exactly, coming to the point where you just fill in the list. I draw Jeroen. I get the list. AI says he needs a new drilling device. Do you like me to buy it for you? You can also say yes. Would you like it packaged? Yes. Would you like to drop ship it to his house or your house? And then done.
Definitely, yeah.
It's going to be a lot easier to do these kind of things in the future.
It depends on how far you want to look in the future, but I already had quite some interesting discussions with UX designers about, do we need UIs? For some things, I think we do. The whole promise of Siri and Alexa was already that you could do this. You could just say like, hey, Alexa, what do you think I should buy my dad? Do you want a drilling machine? Yes. Okay. Then we ship it to you. I don't know yet what the interface will be, but I think like 5 to 10 years from now, it might be different than your phone and your laptop.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think, we've looked at this before. Like, I think one of the first presentations we gave, and we had the whole Iron Man Jarvis thing where he's, using his hands, he's interacting with his voice and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think as you say, how we interface with AI is going to change over time. We're still kind of using computers and phones, but voice is. It's okay at the moment. It's not there. It's not.
No, but the same for VR or AR, right? So you there's a lot of human psychology in there, I think, because you would imagine. The first time I saw a Vision Pro from Apple, I was like, yeah, I need one. But I already know from all my previous experience with this kind of thing that it will just be sitting in the dust somewhere in a drawer after a few months.
yeah, done
exactly.
playing.
And they're really heavy.
Yeah. But even if it would be less heavy, would you then use it every day?
No,
I don't know.
No, we know some people who are big on the Vision Pro, and that's fine.
I tried it once, and it's really cool. It's a cool demo.
Yeah,
but I'm just scared that I'll just throw it, not throw it away, but not use it and not use it enough.
There's some really good videos on Instagram of people wearing VR headsets and like jumping headfirst into walls and TVs and like randomly hitting people as they're in the game because they're completely immersed. Yeah, there's yeah. Okay,
we need to grow a little bit on that side.
Yeah.
But overall, I think it was really cool with the drawn names example to for me feel like the difference between AI. Let's try it for a first time on something small versus really implementing it in the whole business process.
Imagine doing 30 million draw names things using an AI engine in the back end, doing all a lot of stuff.
It's very exciting, much more than the customer service thing for me.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. Jeroen, it's been an absolute pleasure. Those are 3 very different use cases. I think we've covered nearly most industries out there. So, we've done retail, healthcare, and engineering, let's call it. So yeah, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast, and thanks very much for doing it. And we will see everyone on the next edition. Thanks very much.
Yeah, see you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.